Brace yourself for a story that moves fast and hits hard. High stakes. Intense confrontations. The ultimate price of vigilance. I spent 32 years running a school. My job was to walk into chaos and bring order without ever raising my voice. Teachers came to me with problems they couldn't solve. Parents came to me carrying grief they couldn't name. I listened. I assessed. I acted. Never once did I lose composure in front of a student, a parent, or staff member. Not once. I never imagined I would need those same skills to save my own daughter. She was 31 when she met her husband at a mutual friend's dinner in Atlanta. The next morning, she called me. She was private, guarded. She had been hurt before and built walls I respected. So when she called me at 7:45 on a Sunday, before I had finished my first cup of coffee, I paid attention. She said his name was Marcus. She said he was thoughtful, asked more questions than she had ever been asked on a first meeting, and truly listened. Her laugh that morning was unguarded. Real. I hadn't heard it in a long time. I told her I was glad. I meant it. 6 weeks later, I met Marcus for Sunday dinner. He brought flowers for me, white tulips, after checking with my daughter. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye and said, "It means a lot to me to be here." He was well-dressed but understated. He spoke carefully, complimented my cooking specifically, noting flavors that reminded him of his grandmother's Sunday roasts. I liked him immediately. I want to be honest about that because it matters later. I genuinely liked him. Marcus had a younger sister, Renee. She arrived at our second dinner, bright-eyed and talkative, hugging my daughter like old friends. She complimented her hair, remarked that my home felt warm, laughed at her brother's jokes, refilled her own glass, and carried an ease that I appreciated. Some people fill a room with noise. Renee filled it with warmth. They got engaged 14 months after meeting. The proposal was at the botanical garden my daughter loved, with a small string quartet. Marcus called me first for my blessing and wrote a letter my daughter read to me over the phone, crying. I cried too. I told myself this was it. After all she had endured, she had found something real. I was wrong about some things, though not everything. What I first noticed, and tried to set aside, was how Marcus spoke about my daughter's work. She was a graphic designer, skilled, disciplined, running her own small studio, proud of her clients and her reputation. When she spoke of a project that excited her, Marcus would nod slowly and then redirect the conversation carefully. That sounds like a lot of pressure for a boutique operation, he might say, or, you've always taken on more than you need to. Small phrases, weighted just enough to bend the branch without breaking it. I told myself it was maternal protectiveness, that he was concerned about stress, that people in love sometimes express worry in imperfect ways. I kept telling myself this for about a year. The changes in my daughter weren't dramatic, no sudden transformation. It wasn't one morning she looked different. It was subtle, a Tuesday phone call where her voice was slightly more cautious than last Tuesday, a Sunday dinner where she checked her phone twice, eyes on the door, a birthday lunch where she ordered a salad instead of pasta, saying she was watching what she ate. She stopped talking about her work. That was what finally cut through my self-reassurance. Even at 8, she narrated every choice for her paper collages. Every color, every shape had meaning, and she had shared it all with me. Then she stopped. One Saturday morning at the farmer's market, just the two of us, I asked carefully if everything was all right at home. She paused in front of a table of peaches and said, "Marcus just thinks I spend a lot of time in my head about work. He thinks it's better if I leave work at work." The voice sounded memorized, repeated enough to become a script. I bought 4 peaches. I didn't push. I regret that too. 14 months into their marriage, the gallery opening came. My daughter had been commissioned to design the full visual identity for a small but respected Midtown gallery. Branding, signage, promotional materials, the opening night program the largest single project of her career. The gallery owner had called me to say she was among the most talented designers she had ever worked with. On that Friday evening in October, I arrived early. The room reflected my daughter's careful, years-long labor colors chosen, lighting balanced, programs printed on heavy cream paper with her typeface. She stood near the entrance, wearing a deep green dress, her hair up, beautiful and tense. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with Renee. He wore a suit, glanced around for a few seconds, and said loudly enough for those nearest to hear, "The lighting in here is a little harsh, don't you think?" My daughter replied, "The gallery owner and I chose it together." Renee laughed quietly, hand over her mouth, looking at her shoes. I watched my daughter shift her shoulders, carrying weight she was used to bearing. The evening went on. The gallery owner gave a short speech, thanked my daughter by name, and the room applauded. Marcus clapped twice, looking at his phone. Around 8 o'clock, a journalist approached my daughter about the project. She began to speak and came alive in a way I remembered: radiant, precise, fully herself. Marcus stepped into the circle, placed a hand on her back, a gesture that felt like a door closing. He told the journalist, "She tends to over-explain the technical side. The short version is, she just has good taste." My daughter stopped talking. Renee leaned in and whispered, "He's just trying to help her. She gets nervous and starts rambling. Marcus knows how to handle her." I did not speak, but something shifted inside me. The pattern I had ignored for 14 months had spoken plainly. I spent the next 3 weeks observing differently, not as a worried mother hoping she was wrong, but as someone trained to notice patterns. I wrote dates, words, incidents, the ways Marcus had gone through her phone, how he dictated decisions about projects under the guise of shared finances. I called a retired legal aid friend for guidance on documenting controlling behavior. She told me exactly what I needed to know. The moment I had prepared for came on a Sunday in November. We had dinner at my house. Marcus and Renee, who had begun joining us most Sundays without invitation, but also without refusal, were there. I had made my daughter's favorite meal, baked chicken with a particular herb crust, roasted sweet potatoes, collarded greens. Partway through, Marcus pushed his plate aside, claiming he wasn't hungry. I said it was fine. Then he said evenly, "You should probably watch the salt anyway. You've been retaining water." The table went quiet. Renee smiled, masking it. My daughter looked down, moved her fork, silent. Her shoulders curved inward, shrinking herself at her own mother's table because of 5 words designed to shame her. I folded my napkin, walked to my bedroom, and took 4 slow breaths, the way I had learned to enter situations requiring clarity. I sent a text to my daughter, "Meet me Monday." Then I emailed a family law attorney with a 30-year Atlanta practice. The message was brief. I had documentation, needed to know her options, and asked for a meeting that week. I returned to the table, kept my voice warm, listened to Renee talk about her job, and finished dinner with calm precision. When they left, my daughter hugged me longer than usual. Silence, presence, understanding. Monday morning she arrived at 9 o'clock. Coffee ready, notebook on the table. 3 weeks of documentation slid across to her. She turned pages slowly, expression moving through recognition, grief, relief, shame. I remained quiet. She asked, "How long have you been keeping this?" I said, 3 weeks of writing, a year of watching." She looked at me, really looked at me and said, "Mom, I love him." I said, "I know that too." I explained I had scheduled an attorney appointment for Thursday, with or without her, so she could have options. The choice was hers. She came with me. The attorney calmly and precisely explained the pattern, naming it coercive control. My daughter nodded slowly, seeing for the first time what she had lived inside of but could not name. It took 2 more months. There were evenings she pulled back, a week in January when she stopped returning calls. One Sunday at 11 p.m. she admitted she didn't know who she was anymore. I told her I did, that the person she had been narrating collages at 7 years old had never gone anywhere. She filed in March. Marcus was served on a Tuesday morning. My daughter called from a parking garage, crying the kind of release that sounds like relief, even when it carries grief. Renee called 2 weeks later, composed, accusing me of destroying their family. I said, "I hope you find peace," and ended the call. The divorce was finalized 7 months later. My daughter moved into a small apartment 2 miles from my house, with light, space for a studio, and painted it terracotta, the color she had always wanted. She hung her work, got a cat, and began living fully again. I visited with groceries and found her at her desk, earbuds in, preparing a client call. She paused, gave me 10 minutes, returned to work. I stood quietly, holding soup I had made her, feeling something I had not in years. I did not save her. She saved herself. I was present, attentive, and had quietly built the door she could choose to walk through. 32 years of watching children grow taught me that help is not always loud. The most powerful action is to observe, document, and act with precision when the moment calls for it. Now she runs in the mornings, works in her studio, shares excitement for projects, her voice loose, particular, fully hers. One recent Saturday morning, we went to the farmer's market, walked arm in arm, ordinary and bright, and I held that morning in my heart. If you are a parent watching this, notice the quiet signals, document honestly, and build doors quietly. If you are someone made smaller by another, know that the person you were exists, waiting. Speak truth, no need for noise, just presence.